Good evening everybody. I'm going to show you my talent, which is to do some work in Photoshop. So we're going to take this picture of a silverleaf monkey taken in Selangor and hopefully make it a bit more dramatic. So the first thing we're going to do is to copy the layer that we've got, that's the photo. Now we're going to sharpen the image. Now there's a couple of ways you can do this. One is using filter and use sharpen, which allows you to sharpen the image. Or the way I prefer is also using a filter, but I use what's called the high pass filter. What this does is it shows the edges a lot more of things like the fur, so it makes it stand out more for what we're doing later on. You can change the size of this, so the how strong the filter is. You can put it up really high, or you can actually get it a bit lower, and as you can see, this is the effect. I tend to use it somewhere between 2 and 5. So in this particular case we'll set 4.5. Now at the moment you've lost the image, but that's not a problem. What we then do is change the blending mode, which is over here on the right hand side, and we change that to overlay, and the image will now come through again. So we've got the basic image of the monkey, and we've now sharpened up the edges of the fur, which will be important later on. Next thing we're going to do is just to change the levels. Now the levels allow us to change the shading and the brightness of certain elements in the picture. So for example, if I put it high, you can see that you've lost a lot of the shade, but it has brought out some of the features around the face. If you push it the other way, it goes dark obviously, and you lose that. You can also adjust where the black starts, so you can actually get it to go darker, or you can move the light point in here so you'll see it comes brighter again. So those are the different controls. In this case I want to keep it a bit slightly brighter than it was originally. The next thing we're going to do is bring in the lightness and contrast. That's this button here, and this has two controls. One is just simply the brightness, which is similar to what we can do with some of the levels, but the other one is the contrast, and this brings out again some of the differences between the dark and the light fur, which is what we want. So I'm going to increase the contrast a bit, and I'm also just going to up the brightness a bit. Now what we want to do is to put a black background in. To do that, we create a new layer, which is down here on the right hand side, and we click on it, and then what we want to do is to make it black. So we do edit, fill, and what we'll do here is select on the drop down menu black, and we want to make sure the blending mode is normal. Now when we click this, the little monkey will disappear. Now this is not bad. What we want to do now is do what's called a layer mask, and layer masks allows us to remove some parts of the black that we want to reveal the monkey, and some parts to leave the monkey as is. So to do this, what I'm going to do is firstly set the opacity of my mask to 80%. We'll change it back at the end, but what this does is allow me to see the monkey, which is what I want to do. We then need to put in what we call the layer mask, and that's this little button down here. So this now puts in an invisible layer, but what it actually means is when I work on this layer, the monkey will start appearing. I have to select the pen, which is I'm going to use. I want to select black because I'm basically removing parts of the mask. And then the other control we have is what's called the flow rate and opacity. Now in this case what we want to do is set the flow rate to quite low. The reason I want to do this is because I want to slowly bring out the monkey features. If you use the very high level, it'll just immediately show the whole of the image below, which is not what we want to do. We want to make sure that the image comes out slowly. So I select that. I then need to select a brush size. Comes up, and now I can start just removing some of the faces of the monkey. Oh, I've messed up, the should be on black, so here we go, and now you can see the monkey starting coming through. Again, the reason why I select the flow rate up here as quite low is because what I want to do is actually just slowly bring the features out. I tend to start very much on the eyes because they draw attention, but then you start moving around other bits of the fur just to start bringing those bits and making them more apparent. Now with this I'm using a pen, so I can actually change the size of the pen. I can also change it. At the moment you can see it's got a very hard red edge. What I can do is actually change that and make the brush softer, and you'll see as it goes up that the edges go soft, and that's useful at times when you're working near the edge, because you don't necessarily want to have a very strong colour difference or difference between the background and the foreground. So we continue working here. We're now going to build up on the nuts that he's carrying. Keep slowly working it out. And that's good, it's beginning to get there. If I mess up and go over the edge like here, it's not a problem. You just change the brush to the opposite colour, so it was black, it's now white, and I just paint back again, and I can put those things, put the colour back in. Again, I can change the size of the brush and just put those things back in. So the mask is very useful. It doesn't actually change anything to do with the original paint photograph. So you can see if I remove it, you can still see the original photograph is there, which is the nice thing about the masks. Now, normally I take a bit more time to do this. The next stage is to actually, I want to make the eyes a lot more prominent. So what I'm going to do is select this button here, which is what's called the saturation tool, and it allows me to increase the saturation. As you can see, they'll go brighter red. It also allows me to increase the lightness. In this case, I want it to be here. Now, it's brought out the eyes nicely, but what it has also done is obviously change things with the colour of the fur. So we're going to use the same thing as we did for the black. We're going to create a mask using the mask tool here. Now in this case, I want to remove a lot of this item, so what I'll do is I'll change the flow rate here up to 100% because I want to remove these items in the mask. I'll now change the brush size, and I'm also going to make it a bit harder. And now what I'll do is I'll just paint out the parts that I don't want. So you can see the colour will go back to what it was before I applied that filter. Now as I get nearer the eyes, what I want to do is to reduce the brush size, and I also want to make it harder because I'm now going to be working close to the eyes themselves. So I just want to remove some of these bits here, and you can see, so now I'm just left with the eyes themselves. Okay, what I then do is go back to my earlier layer, the dark one, the black one, and what I'll do is I'll now change the opacity back up, and what you'll see is this is what the final image starts to look like. Again, I can select the layer mask, I can select my paintbrush, and I can now start doing some more work. Ooh, I'll set the blending mode too high. Nice thing about this is I can actually just click on this button and go back a step. And now change the flow rate back down again to normally about, I normally use less than 10. And now I can start building it up again. As you can see, it tends to take a bit longer. When you're finished, this is what the final product looks like. So, hope you enjoyed the session. Thank you very much.